what is it that I pay people? So I think you have a couple of different options, and I think it's really going to be dependent on a couple of things. So I would highly recommend before you do anything for your group practice is figure out for your individual state whether you are allowed to have independent contractors or if you must have employees. Now in Florida, for instance, they're pretty independent contractor friendly versus someplace like California, you're not allowed to have independent contractors. And so you can't even have independent contractors. So you have to have your business model designed as employees. So the first thing that you want to decide is whether you want to have employees or independent contractors. Some of the benefits of having employees is that you have a little bit more control over their schedule, the times maybe that they work, the kinds of clients that they see, some of the things that they do. Some of the benefits of having independent contractors is that you don't have to do maybe as much oversight on what they do. They kind of come and go. They utilize a lot of their own resources and you provide for them like a set amount of things. And so I think there's pros and cons to either, but regardless of if you have independent contractors or employees, you can go ahead and sort of pay them in the same way. So what's very popular is to do a percentage. So I would recommend also that you check with your ethics boards, only because this comes up all the time, but that's fee splitting. Well, when I check with my ethics boards in Florida, it's not considered fee splitting because they're not giving me a percentage for the referral. The percentage goes for billing, their credit card, the electronic health record, the office. I mean, it's going for administrative costs. So I'm not getting a kickback for that referral. So it's not considered fee splitting. But if you want to just double check on that, you can definitely check with your boards or your, American Counseling Association, American Psychological Association, just to give yourself a peace of mind. So I've seen anywhere really from 40% going to the independent contractor up to 70% going to the independent contractor. Really depends on what you're going to provide. Again, this is also going to be where you need to decide if you're going to do private pay or if you're going to do insurance. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're private pay that you have to pay a certain percentage, but sometimes with private pay, there's things that come along with it, like more marketing, higher marketing budget. So that might impact how much you spend on your marketing every month, which would impact what percentage the practice would get. So you want to go ahead and take a look at your overhead, how much it's actually going to cost you to run this practice, and decide what a split would be good for your independent contractor and what would be good for you. And you can do the same thing with employees. You can take a look at what are taxes going to cost you, what kind of benefits you want to provide for them, and then what the overhead and some profit for you as the group practice owner, right? You may want to cut down the amount of hours that you work, and you are going to make money from what your employees or independent contractors bring in and how much you want to do. So I would say what I've seen fairly consistent across the board is if you are private pay, it's closer to 50-50. And if you're an insurance-based practice, it's 60% going to the independent contractor or employee and 40% going to the group practice. So anyways, you can go based on what the typicals are for general group practices, or you can take a look at what your expenses are and decide from there. I've also seen tier systems like for the first 90 days, the person will get, it's a 50-50 split. Then after they hit a certain income goal or a number of clients, they get 60-40. And then if they turn to something like full-time, they get 70-30 or some variation of that. So as long as this is outlined very well in your contract, I think that you can decide what works for your practice. Another option is to pay a flat rate. So very common number is $40 per session, whether they're an independent contractor or an employee. You can decide what that flat rate is. Again, if you're private pay, that rate might be $70. Or if you're an insurance-based practice in your area happens to be a little bit lower reimbursement rates, maybe that wouldn't really be viable for you. You can also take a look at, what other places in your area are paying for licensed therapists and kind of match that, or give a little bit better a rate, so then that way you can be a competitive employer around the area. So if you are thinking about doing a group practice, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, TherapyNotes. They have been designed specifically for group practices. You can so easily track your independent contractors or employees sessions, how much money they're bringing in every month, how many of a particular insurance is providing you with referrals. You can track billing. It's just such a great user-friendly tool for you to run your group practice. So if you're looking for an electronic health record, both for your solo and your group practice, I want you to check out TherapyNotes. So let's go back to, you can do a percentage, you can do a flat rate. I've also seen people just do an hourly rate. It's similar to, I guess it would be similar to a flat rate, but you might decide if you have employees that you want to do a salary, or you want to do, give a certain amount of money for admin time. So a lot of people will only pay for actual time that they're seeing the client. So they might pay, give a flat rate for $40 for that session, but that would include any notes or any follow-up that needed to be done. Some people decide to pay for admin time. Maybe sometimes that's done at a different rate. So the clinical rate is $40, but the admin rate is $30. And so one thing that I would highly recommend is that you talk to an employment lawyer. I can give you the ideas of some of the things that you can bring up to them, but I can't give you legal advice. I did not get my law degree, so I'm not going there. So you definitely want to go ahead and check with an employment lawyer about what works for your state, what works for your type of business that you have, and what's going to bring you what you need for your group practice. So I would love to hear from those of you who have a group practice. Maybe share below in the comments what kind of split that you've seen, what you have, or just give us some information about your group practice. We would love to hear about that. So join me every Tuesday and Thursday here with a Live with Amanda at 3 p.m. Bye, everybody.